Hello YouTube video watchers, welcome to our YouTube channel. This YouTube video is brought to you by Kangaroo Time. So at Kangaroo Time we do three very specific things. We automate the business, so all your payments, all your billing, clocking in, clocking out, keeping track of time with your teachers, everything to do with the business we automate with our child care management system. We also have a classroom automation platform which gives your teachers nudges and prompts at point of care. So feedings, diaper changes, and the ability to communicate with your parents. We also have a world-class parent engagement platform that hardwires your parents and families into the early education experience. So please check us out and enjoy the video. Thanks everybody. Hey everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining. We'll get started here in about 90 seconds. We'll let the hundreds of you join. Hope everybody's safe out there. I know we've been getting some warm weather here in California, and I know my team in Buffalo is a little warm. Shira, Daria, are you guys staying cool at least?
Yeah, it is warm here in New York.
We're at 83.
Oh yeah, 83 and muggy in New York. Gotta love it. Awesome. Well, while people join, I'll do a little bit of house cleaning and some introductions. First of all, for those of you that are new to our webinars, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, I say it every week, but it is a travesty that we only have 233 subscribers. Some of the talent that we've had join us, look at this one, Shira Leibowitz, PhD. Shira did a 2-hour and 16-minute and 48-second, to be exact, session on PPP. Shira, this was a great session. It took me 2 sessions of cardio to get through it. But there's some hidden treasures in here. And the fact that it only has 110 views today is crazy. I think all of us, everybody needs to watch it. But we've had more than 30 videos that we've uploaded. We will continue to put our content here. And by subscribing, you will get a notification anytime we put up something new. I would like to also encourage you to all join the Kangaroo Time or the KT Childcare Connect group. We're quickly approaching 1,000 members, which is amazing. Look, and Shira, you are, I think you're what we call a superstar in our group. You're a rising star. You're a rising star. But this is a place we decided as a company that we would post real statistics, real data. I know many of you are trying to make decisions on when to come back, what best practices are. We wanted to get you unbiased data that wasn't influenced by big media. And it's all here. So please join that group. And then for those of you that don't know, let's see, we've got our chat up. We just launched our blog a couple weeks ago. Again, all the content that we have on the YouTube channel and more is here. So please subscribe to our blog and you will get notification anytime we put up any content. So that brings about the introductions. Again, my name's Scott Wayman. I am the founder and CEO at Kangaroo Time. Gosh, it's now been 13 or 14 weeks ago, we saw the events of COVID-19 being this tumultuous and historic time in our industry. And I met with our investors, I met with our team, and we decided this is not the time to be out in front of the company in pursuit of growth and in pursuit of making our company bigger. This is a time that we need to lean into stewardship and advocacy and bring our customers and our partners in the early education world as much content as possible. And this has blossomed into one of the most beautiful times in my career. Very touched by what's happened over the past 13 weeks, to see many of you support each other, and to see many of you like Shira step into, you know, a place of being an entrepreneur and elevating that into being a leader in our domain. So without much further ado, I'll get to a few announcements for housekeeping, and then I'll introduce Shira. First of all, certificates. Love you all. We love that we can offer certificates, but we get hundreds of emails after these asking, where is my certificate? You will get it. We promise you. We've never missed on a certificate. So no emails. Do not email us tomorrow. You will get the certificates. We want you to have them. But us handling the traffic has been crazy and overwhelming. If you have questions, go ahead and answer those in the flow, or go ahead and ask those in the QA module here in Zoom. And Genevieve and I will either answer them while Shira's delivering content, or when you're done, we'll have Daria and Shira answer those if they're more specialized. But that's what powers this entire conversation. So please ask questions. Your mics and cameras are off. I had somebody freak out a couple weeks back asking if I could see them because they might have been gone to the bathroom. Don't worry about that. We can't see you. So you're good. Many of you I know are still at home. The recording will be available tomorrow later in the day. So typically Genevieve and I will work on things throughout the day, and Genevieve and Marissa and her team, they will get it out like later in the day. So you will, if you have to drop off early, don't worry about it. We have a record of it. And as always, Shira is here to deliver gold. So speaking of Shira, before Open Air Center in July of 2019, she spent 20 years as a principal of nursery through 8th grade private schools. Having received a PhD in education, she taught in a doctoral program in education at Northeastern University. She is the co-author of The Coach Approach to School Leadership, Leading Teachers to Higher Levels of Effectiveness, published by the Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development. With expertise in project-based learning and other innovative approaches, she has extensive experience with professional development, both in person and virtual. And Shira, I know you're getting lots of experience in virtual these days. Most recently, she was trained by New York Volunteer and has been helping childcare centers in Westchester apply for their PPP and EIDL loans. Again, check out her session on YouTube. It is the best. This has led to some additional entirely volunteer consulting with these schools on a range of challenges in operating and reopening in the days of COVID-19. She also has very recently begun coordinating conversations with educators globally on creative early childhood learning and what can emerge for early childhood out of this crisis. So today's discussion, Shira will discuss as center owners prepare to rebuild, how they can master the inspiration and vision to create something to sustain and prepare children now and throughout their lives. She will discuss how to use this time at its best during the pandemics. Also, you then add to that what we've gone through with an awakening to systemic racism and the protests, and how this helps to rebuild your program while improving quality and learning as well. So Shira, thank you for joining us and welcome. Thank you. I'll unshare my screen and hide this thing, but thanks for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. So now I need to see where to share my screen, which I've been working on as you've been speaking. I had it up before and now I'm not seeing it. So give me a second and walk me through.
Sure. So if you can go back to the Zoom control area, you should see like a green share screen box somewhere.
I know we saw it last time, and now I'm in mine. Hold on one moment.
Sure.
To Zoom. Meanwhile, I'll introduce Daria, who is our director of our center, has years and years in early childhood development and in early childhood leadership, and is central in all I'm going to speak about. I'm going to have to go back in now. Where did I see you? I am so sorry for this.
Yeah, if you click my picture, it will probably bring out the control panel. I know it gets confusing, especially when you have all kinds of modules up.
Okay, I'm not seeing your picture now. Can you come back?
Yeah, let me do that. Let's see if that brings it up. Hey, everybody. Gosh, we've got a lot of chat here.
Great.
Oklahoma, Indiana. Hey, Cher, what kind of computer are you using?
I'm on a Mac.
Okay, so can you click at the bottom? There should be like a blue box with Zoom on there, and maybe that will bring up your control panel.
Yeah, I just had you till you signed off. Okay, yes, 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 yes. Beautiful. Yes, we got it. Okay, super. Here we are.
Awesome. Hey, this is my plug. So I wish Zoom was as easy to use as Kangaroo Time,
Yes.
right?
Okay. I am sharing my screen. Hold on. Let's pull it up. All right. Okay, do you guys see my screen now?
No, we can't see it.
Okay. Sorry. Share screen. Okay.
There we go. We can see it now.
All right. Sorry for that.
Beautiful. No, no worries. No worries. That was
Here
my
we
fault.
are. All right. Welcome, everybody. You know, this period of time has changed us dramatically as a center, I think many of us. And we've been open. We're in downstate New York. We're in Westchester. We were the first hotspot in the country. And we made the decision to stay open. And I'm grateful for that for many reasons. First and foremost, we had essential workers who really needed the care throughout. We closed for only 8 days. And something that we've learned through this process is that constraint brings creativity and challenge brings transformation. And so we've been finding the ways through this process, not to fear, but to embrace what's possible. So I had spoken to Scott and Genevieve about a session on creativity and the constraints of COVID. And once the Black Lives Matter protests started, I reached out and said, I think we have to change the content. I think we can no longer speak only about COVID. There's more to speak about. So I want to talk about early childhood as havens of hope in a world of pandemic and protest, and what can come out of this extraordinarily difficult time for early childhood. So you see here photos of some of my children in my preschool. They are making rainbow clouds in a jar, and that was an experience of hope. We'll talk about more. We were struck by pandemic. We had to decide whether to close, whether to remain open for essential workers. My center decided to remain open. How we would keep children safe. So when we decided to close for 8 days, when things were getting very bad, child care center after child care center was closing. And I spent 8 days, we did a deep cleaning, a deep disinfecting. We came up with health and safety protocols. This was early on. There was very little information available. And I'd wake up panicking of what if somebody gets sick? What should I do? So there was a lot of work that went into keeping children safe and keeping children joyous and happy and learning. How would we survive financially? I developed expertise in the PPP loans because I felt I needed them to survive. And we'll talk about other financial ways to navigate through these challenging times. This is a picture of one of my infant rooms with only one child. We're back up to 5 children now. At our hardest moment, we had 6 children, toddlers and preschoolers, no infants. We're now back up to 22 and slowly building back up. Amidst all of this, we saw the country facing protest and racial inequity and demands for a different, better world. And how would we as childcare centers respond? And amidst that, we haven't been talking a lot about climate change, but that's ever present. And so there are enormous challenges facing our world that come into our beautiful havens of hope of centers of early childhood learning and care. So as we were facing all of these challenges, I began to wonder what could emerge from these difficult times. There were the darkest days. I wondered if we would survive. And then as I started to feel more optimistic, I wondered whether we could improve, whether we could flourish, and what we could create out of facing such hardship. I thought back to the early educational approaches of the 20th century that emerged out of crisis. It's important to look not only at European models, but we'll get there, and we'll get there eventually. But most in early childhood have heard of Montessori, have heard of Waldorf, have heard of Reggio. These are approaches that are not only early childhood, specifically Waldorf, which is K to 12 mostly, pre-K to 12. Montessori has its reach all the way up to 12th grade, and Reggio is mostly early childhood, although has inspired project-based learning all the way up. But the early childhood centers have heard of, focus, many identify with these approaches. Montessori is the oldest of these 3, 1907, Rome, a neighborhood of Rome that was impoverished. Parents were working, children, toddlers, preschoolers were running around unattended, not safe, and Maria Montessori was brought in to create a center to care for children. And created an environment, they had been on their own, independent, created an environment where the environment would allow them to, in very productive, positive, developmental ways, learn and grow. Waldorf came out of Germany post-World War I with devastation, looking for social renewal. The first Waldorf came out of a speech that Rudolf Steiner gave at the Waldorf Astoria cigarette factory in Germany, and the owner of the factory decided he wanted to start a school. And they were looking at social renewal in a time and a place that needed social renewal, and a focus on education as one of the ways to reach that. This. And then Reggio, my school had been, Daria and I, reforming it as a Reggio-inspired school. I purchased an existing center in July, and we were really reworking the program. Reggio has been my heart and soul for a long time, and I'm transforming. We'll talk about that and building on that. But Reggio began in the days following World War II in Italy, northern Italy, an area that had been very involved in resistance and had been devastated both by anti-resistance forces and by Allied forces. They built a preschool. A group of parents spontaneously, you see a picture of them here, built a preschool out of rubble from bombed out buildings on land donated by a farmer with funding from a tank and 3 horses they found left from the war. And their aim was to create a preschool that would help their children in the future stand strong against oppression, inequity, and injustice. So I wonder, is this a founding moment for us with all that we're facing? And can we bring from this challenge something new that will resonate with 21st century children and families? That was a long introduction to what we're going to talk about today, which we're going to talk about COVID-19 health protocol, and not just the protocol. You can get that in lots of places. We're all getting lots of information from our local Office of Children and Family Services and Departments of Health. But how can we use the constraints of those protocol for real creativity? How can we face inequity, discrimination, racism, oppression? We're going to put in there, we'll bring out caring for the earth, and you'll see how that emerged naturally in our center. We're going to talk about financial solutions for these challenging times, possibilities for the global and local impact, as we're at a moment where the whole world is facing similar challenges in their own unique local ways. We're going to look at vision. We're going to look at an emerging approach that's coming out of our center, and lots of emerging approaches may come, and possible next steps. So health protocol. We've all been talking about health protocol. If you're not yet opened, it seems scarier. That's been my experience. Then once you do open, you see that you can handle this. You really, really can. What are the protocol that we have in place? And here are some pictures of it. And what have we done with that protocol? We've organized children in pods: infants, mixed age infants, toddlers, mixed age toddlers, and preschool, mixed age preschool. The teachers do wear masks. I do hear a lot from educators worried that children will be afraid of the masks. They're not. The masks are uncomfortable. We get used to them. But the children, in my center at least, have not been nervous by them at all. So you'll see teachers with masks still engaging with children, still caring for children. We talk about hand washing. Hand washing, and we'll go through that, has been huge in our center. We wash our hands between every activity, minimum once every 30 minutes. And the hand washing has led to full explorations on water. It wasn't even about germs, and it wasn't about COVID. So sparking kids' creativity by making things playful. So now hand washing is a core to classroom management. It's a transition between every activity. It's a moment to pause, to reflect. And kids are washing their hands naturally and really playing with that. Lots of outdoors, door time school shoes, so you don't walk into, you can see our school shoe pile. And this has been, I think, one of the biggest things that the creativity has emerged from. Easy to disinfect sensory materials. So you could see our handmade sensory table, the cheapest thing you could do. We took a table we had, we took recycled bottles, kids poured in food coloring and glitter and toys and made it themselves as an activity. Ziploc bags with different materials we put in. These can be really easily disinfected between each use, and it became a sensory table for our toddlers. Lots of outdoor time. Sensory bins, no more big sensory bins with lots of hands in, individual sensory bins, individual materials for projects that then connect together. And then that's created really an approach of individual voices joining together for collective action. This is our toddler room. We have only right now one toddler room, one preschool room, and one infant room opened. You can see the sensory table, and you can see the circle time, teacher with a mask, kids having individual material, but still playing together. This is, I think, the heart of where the inspiration for us and the shifts in our program for what was Reggio to become what's similar but different. We do have pods. Teachers are assigned to either the infants or the toddlers or the preschoolers. They do not mix ever. So if somebody tested positive, we would likely have to shut down one pod for 2 weeks as everybody self-isolates, but not the whole school. We're a very project-based school. That's very Reggio. Other approaches use projects as well. And now we had to learn how to do these significant projects we were working on in a way that's COVID safe. So you can see the infants. This was their firework mural project from the little ones, their own materials that only they touch. The toddlers, this was a baking project. And then this is the preschoolers, they were making a birdhouse. Each child has, and this is for every activity, and it happens every day, science activities, art activities, where kids have their own materials, and their materials are combined together for collaborative projects. And this lets us really much more hone in, giving children voice, pride in what they're doing, and ability to choose parts of projects that they're most interested in. And that's been really powerful for our kids. Again, you never know where kids' interests will go, and there's been a free-flowing following of kids' interests. So while the world was talking about COVID, hand washing became huge for us, and the kids got really interested in water. So they wanted to wash their toys, they wanted to wash everything, and they wondered about life under the sea. They started an aquarium project. So you can see this is Natasha with our aquarium, and learning more about life under the sea. From the aquarium, they wondered about how water is necessary for life, the difference between salt water and fresh water, and this is the preschool's indoor garden that they've been working on. We moved from people watering plants to how do plants in the wild get watered, and we wanted to learn about clouds and rain clouds. So this is our cloud observatory that we built. And then from clouds, we became interested in rainbows, and we learned that rainbows are symbols of hope, and the world needs hope. So we painted rainbows outside. We created rainbows in a jar. We created road trips to rainbows and to vacation places. This road trip came out of another exploration that they were doing on farms, and farms need trucks and roads led to vacation. So there's a very free-flowing exploration with the skills, the academic skills we want, all embedded within whatever it is that the kids are interested in. This is all COVID safe. But when you look at these photos, you're not seeing COVID. You're not seeing fear. You're not seeing nervous teachers disinfecting all the time. We are disinfecting all the time, but it's calm. When kids, and they do, touch each other's materials, there is no hysteria. It's a really quick, okay, no problem, go wash your hands. And the kids know to go wash their hands. From this whole exploration around water and trying to create life as normal as possible within the center, the protests came. And we wondered how to react. I wondered how to react as an early childhood center. You may have noted in the photos, which were not curated in any particular way, they're just our photos. Our center is organically, racially, ethnically diverse. The kids, I decided we were not going to raise what was going on in the world until children raised it, and they did pretty quickly. And we were ready. Our children were absolutely incredulous. It was the preschool that anybody could think differently of anybody else because of the color of their skin. They live in a racially diverse community, and they wanted to make pictures of themselves. So you can see this is their self-murals with their different color skin tones. They did some talking about what was going on, and we were very careful to answer honestly whatever kids asked, not to give more information developmentally than they were ready to take in. And we wondered, what more could we do to instill the values that we believe of compassion and kindness and tolerance? And we looked for research. This mural is something that the toddlers worked on. We looked for guidance, and we looked for guidance with research that would be compelling to me. And I continue to look for research that's compelling to me on what's appropriate for young children. And I went back to research that I began really early in my career with 20 years ago, looking at how people who rescued Jews during the Holocaust, another age, another time, another form of racism, how those who stood to rescue Jews at risk to their own lives, about 1/2 of the population of the Nazi-occupied world, what was different about them? And it was mostly a parent who taught them when they were very young a really few core key values. And so we're really working on embedding those core values very deeply into our program. So those are care, being responsive to the needs of others, knowing what others' needs, which may not be what you need, which is a developmental reach for toddlers and preschoolers, and something that we're working on in age-appropriate ways. To help when others need help, not only your family and your friends, but anybody. To not speak negatively of anybody. What we learned about rescuers during the Holocaust, their parents didn't necessarily speak positively of Jews, but they didn't speak negatively of them or of anybody. So being really careful about that. Inclusion, treating all people as equal without regard to social status, ethnicity, race, gender, and developing connections with diverse people and groups. So we have the diversity we have within our center, and we're really thinking about how to extend that, and what groups are our kids not exposed to, and how might we expose them digitally. And then we'll get to global connections at a time where we're limiting who can come into the center. Relationships and empathy, strong relationships. These are people who had strong relationships and showed empathy, but particularly empathy toward the pain of others. So to really care when somebody's hurting. And responsibility and personal efficacy, to believe that you have responsibility to act when something not right is happening in the world, and to believe that you can, and you can make an impact. And that piece of efficacy is becoming more and more core to our program, and helping kids find the things that they can do. They can't do everything, but they can do some things. And that really stems from where we as adults at the center started all of this, saying, overwhelmed by what was going on in our immediate community with COVID, feeling we're not healthcare workers. We couldn't help the people who were sick, but we could care for the kids in our care. And then that had me branch out to say, I learned about PPP loans. I can help childcare centers with this. So whatever expertise we had or we could give, they knew there was so much we couldn't do. And that's efficacy, to really think about what you can do and to jump in and to do it, and helping our children to develop that sense of responsibility and efficacy. That was a free-flowing view of what was going on in the weeks of COVID. If you had asked me when I was closed for those 8 days, what are you going to teach the kids? We thought we were going to teach them about germs. We followed their lead, and their lead went to beautiful, hopeful, meaningful places that were relevant to them. Another group of kids, it would have gone different ways, and we shifted. We had been not happy with any of the curricula on the market. We had been writing our own. We're now shifting, and we're talking about it from a curriculum to an activity bank with skill sets, so that teachers pull from the activity bank based on kids' interests. So there really is in process a pretty substantial transformation of how we approach learning at the center. I do want to talk about finances. We went from, when I purchased the center, we had 68 students. We have a license capacity of 128. We had built up, we would have been at 84, and all of a sudden we were at 6. I didn't know if we were going to survive it. And I do believe, I do have confidence now that we will, and enough confidence that I was able to dedicate some time to doing what I could to helping other centers find the way to survive it. So when you talk about finance, there are many other webinars available, and lots of ways to look at this. I dug into what I was already doing. What were my income sources? What were my expenses? What was worst case scenario? What was best case scenario? I still do that with the PPP loan. So as I look at my finances, Kangaroo Time has an awesome burn down tool. Definitely look at it. Kangaroo Time has amazing tools. I looked at it and decided to use the spreadsheets that I was already using to look at income and expenses and percentage of what I was spending on. So I now look at, what will my income look like without the PPP loan, if I get 100% of what I think is forgivable, forgiven, or if I get 75%. And if I know I can survive the worst, I know that I'm okay. I look month by month. I don't look much beyond that as to what's the income coming in, what expenses do I need, and how am I going to fill any gaps. You have to learn a lot. So, and what you need to learn may be different. I knew I needed to learn the ins and outs of loans, PPP loans, EIDL loans, other loans from the bank. Whatever it is you need to know, find out. Nobody will do this for you. And when I did not get the PPP loan in the first round, I worked with Chase. I got the application in within a couple of hours that it went up online. I thought I was on it and didn't get it, and looked for answers and found nobody knew, and found out how to learn it myself. So what you need to know, you need to learn yourself. And lots of us come to this as educators. I'm a career educator. I spent 20 years in education. Business is new. We all have to learn whatever it is we need to learn. And there may be more relief coming. So advocacy is really important. That's something else our center has become very involved in, working with our local child care council to advocate for more support for child care. There's help out there. So if your background is education and not business, find a business mentor. They're free. I have business mentors through SCORE. SCORE is through, it's a volunteer organization for the Small Business Administration. The Small Business District Administration is also through the Small Business Administration. They're the ones who give the PPP and EIDL loans. There is free mentoring. Take a screenshot of this, look online, and the Women's Enterprise Development Center has regional offices all over. They also provide free mentors. They will work with you even now, by phone, by video, not in person. But I rely really heavily. I worked hard before I opened my center to find mentors that would work for me. I reach out to them frequently, and they give me a lot of information. I actually, and speaking of that, want to go back. I didn't mention, in talking about finances, everybody's talking about income now. But I want to talk about equity as well. Income is the money you're bringing in. Equity is the value of your business. And I made a decision that as long as I could survive financially, I was going to focus on equity. Seems to me that Kangaroo Time has made a similar choice in a lot of the work that they're doing, and that's really been inspiring to me. So equity is the value of your business. Not if you could sell it tomorrow, and I have no interest in selling my business, but how much value does it have? And so really, in a deep core way, improving the quality of your business. And so at a certain point, I made the decision that every decision I was going to make, as long as I was financially stable enough that I know I'll still be here on New Year's Eve, by January 1st, New Year's Day, I was going to focus as much as possible on taking steps to improve the quality of my business. And that's meant sometimes not spending. It's meant sometimes spending. It's meant making all kinds of choices about the kind of care and support I want to give families and teachers. From there, from the finances, another piece to look at in this complicated tapestry of all of the balls we're juggling right now. We're facing a global moment. COVID is global. The Black Lives Matter movement is global. Climate change is global. Around the world, we're facing really similar challenges, and we do have the technology to connect and to work and plan and brainstorm and learn from each other in ways that we couldn't before. So that's something that I've been really interested in. If you're interested in being involved in, you can email me. It's shira@discoveryvillagecenter.com. And I don't know where it will go. It's a very grassroots effort to join people together who want to talk about what's going on and what's possible to emerge. What I'm interested in is not so much how do you implement health and safety protocol? How do you reopen? We've done that, and I'm happy to share information. But I really want to move to the next step of, from that, how can we really take this moment globally and create something much more powerful and of much higher quality than we had before. We're also really embedded locally. This is a picture of Main Street in our town, in Tarrytown, where my center is located. And being embedded in our local community, understanding our local community, understanding within these global crises, how the impact is for our local community and what role and what voice we can have for our families and for our town and the towns that we service is also really important. So being involved with local groups is really significant, and the childcare has its voice in local decision-making and local activity. So I want to shift back now to vision and where we began in the introduction. 20th century educational approaches that are powerful and that are effective. What were they? What was the crisis and what was the vision that emerged? I'm taking approaches that have years and years of building on, and I'm giving you a sentence. So this needs to be unpacked a lot. I'm just touching on the surface here. What were the crises? For Maria Montessori, there wasn't childcare in low-income areas where families were working. There was no place for children to be. They were left unattended, and they were engaging in really negative, dangerous activities. Her vision, which she articulated much later in her life, not until the 30s really, was peace. The children be allowed to develop according to their inner laws of development in a controlled environment, a supportive environment, would lead to their natural development and would lead to a more peaceful civilization. So there was a grand vision. There was, in the weeds, how do you do this, hands-on pedagogy, and that's what educators most often talk about, and it's important. It's also important to remember the vision behind this, which was children's intrinsic motivation to act and promoting peace. Waldorf, the crisis was Germany facing economic, social, and political chaos. It was across the board chaos. And the vision was social renewal, in which there was a role for politics, economy, and culture. Education was viewed as part of culture and an integral part of social renewal of a country in great need. Reggio, the crisis was coming to the end of being devastated in World War II and rebuilding after having faced Nazism and fascism and seeing what oppression, injustice, inequity looks like at its very worst, and wanting a future to prepare their children for a future where they could stand up to anyone who sought to oppress and any such challenges that they would face in the future. Today, what are our challenges? We have health and economic devastation from COVID-19 globally. We have inequity, discrimination, racism, oppression. We have climate change. There may be more that in your communities you think it's important to add to the list. And what's our vision? For me, and there will be multiple visions that emerge from this time, and I think that brainstorming and sharing ideas and sharing different opinions is the most fruitful, creative, important thing that we can be doing right now. My emerging vision is grounded in the language of healing from this health crisis we faced, and being healers, children being healers, not just medical, and creating what I'm calling havens of hope. Discovery Village, where we are, feels like a haven of hope. You walk in and there aren't a lot of kids and a lot of rooms are closed, so we certainly see the crisis. There's new protocol, but it's implemented without stress, with joy, and helping us find creativity from the very constraints that are imposed upon us. So taking that haven and moving it outward as we can. If we can only impact our little center, then that's enough. And if we can take that work we're doing and expand further, then we feel very blessed to be able to do that. And finally, what is our emerging approach? Our faculty are working on this as we speak, and where it will emerge is unclear So we've always used the phrase rev it up. Rev stands for us, relationships, experiences, and values. And some things are changing and some things we're trying to become better versions of ourselves. So we talked about our center always being embedded in relationships and nurturing relationships. And now we're talking about, in a much more explicit way, nurturing relationships with people who are diverse in many ways, and looking at what that means. Experiences. The center is focused on experiential learning, play-based experiential learning, while giving academic skills, pre-kindergarten readiness skills. So where we're coming, shifting pretty dramatically from the project-based approach we used, which was building toward a project, is much more of a flow. And you saw that in the explorations into water that happened over a period of 2 or 3 weeks, totally following kids' interests. Learning flows from children's exploration and interests. We don't plan very far ahead. Instead of the curriculum bank, the curriculum we were writing, we're creating a curriculum bank and skill sets that teachers check. And so teachers both borrow and contribute to the curriculum bank with their activities. And health, as this overarching message of healing, health is embedded into everything. It's hand washing is the biggest one, really, with hand washing being the transition, the grounding, becoming a real core management approach, class management approach in the center. But we're also talking about social and emotional health, physical health in other ways, nutrition, exercise throughout the day, lots of outdoor time, lots of physical movement. So health being really much more embedded in terms of what we do. And then being really explicit about values. And from all of the values that we could talk about, our core value had been caring. That was core to me from the work on Holocaust rescuers I had done so long ago. We've expanded that to caring and contributing, hoping and healing. So care being self-care for children becoming independent, care for others, their friends right near them, caring for the community and caring for the world, and responsibility and personal efficacy of finding one's own unique way to make a positive difference, and being really explicit about there not being only one way, and helping children find ways to express contributing to others. This is rough. This is our initial plan, and it's something that we're really committed to developing and committed to taking the learning and the change that's happened to us in the past couple of months and channeling it in ways that are really positive. And finally, I leave you with questions about how you'll create your own haven of hope. Early childhood is magnificently diverse, different local communities, different centers, different approaches, and all of those voices join together into a really magnificent tapestry that in places where it makes sense to join together, we can join together and I think make a substantial impact. Something to think about of what's going to emerge for us as we can get past just feeling how are we going to survive it, new protocol, finances, to how can we improve and how can we bring healing. And I leave you with the question of what are next steps you may take in your journey as we rebuild our centers. So thank you. We have about 10 minutes left, so I'll ask Daria to jump in and field some of the questions in the chat.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Shira. Everything that you gave out to everybody was extremely informative and helpful and truthful to what we've been going through and what we've been doing to navigate through the pandemic and the racial injustices and everything else that has been going on in the world around us. I answered a lot of questions in the chats already as you were speaking. I was trying to top of a lot of the questions that were
Awesome.
asked. There is one question in the Q&A that I want to give to you to answer. You have more experience with the older children. So the question is from Neil from Westchester County, New York. So we're with you, Neil. What is a possible plan for kids K-5 in an after-school program from 3 to 6 p.m.? It's in an elementary school Neil is the president of the Aspire, starting his 33rd year in an after-school program. They have 2 playgrounds and a small gym with 30 kids daily. So they want to know what's a good plan for running an after-school program with older children, Shira.
So you're going to find that answer within yourself, Neil. And I know you and I had spoken about PPP loans, and you can certainly email me and we can talk further about that. What you're going to do, what you might want to do, you'll think about this, and this is to anybody out there. What are pieces? What are your values? What are your approaches? What's core to you that's most significant, and how do you take those pieces and combine them so that you saw in the presentation what we're doing is taking pieces of what we've done, pieces that are new, and matching them together. But the bulk of my experience, actually, I've always loved the early childhood space, always dreamed of getting into it, but the bulk of my 20 years experience was leading K-5 schools. I've led academic programs, non-academic programs. I would be so happy to brainstorm with you if you want. That being said, I do believe that the answers are within you and that you'll find them with your staff. And if you want to brainstorm, I'm happy to do that.
Another question that I just saw in the chat was if we have our own playground and how we feel about bringing children to a public playground for outdoor play. So I know that one of the things that we were given was the suggestion to keep children outside for as much as possible, that outdoor play and being outside is actually the most safe place for them right now. As far as a public playground, Shira, what would you say to that?
You're going to have to follow local Department of Health guidelines on that. At some point, the playgrounds may be opened. At some point, they're closed. I mistakenly, at the beginning of this, those 8 days we were closed, thought because our public playgrounds were closed that we couldn't go into our playground. The director of professional development at our local child care council set me straight and said, wash their hands well before, wash their hands after, and get them out on that playground. It's considered our New York's Office of Children and Family Services considers playgrounds run by child care centers private space, so we're allowed to go. But whether you can go to a public playground or not, again, if you can, if they're open for you, then sure, that will be a local decision, and just obviously wash their hands really well before and after.
So I don't know how much time we have for more questions, but another one that I tried to answer, Shira, but I feel like you'd be really good at giving a suggestion for this was a director of a center where their employee was upset that there wasn't a message sent out to teachers and families about the racial injustices that have been going on. And I commented in the chat how you did reach out to the families and you did send out a message of hope, and that we did stuff with the children. We shifted our curriculum about diversity and acceptance, and what we did was that we documented what we did and we put it on our social media platforms for families to see, and that was our way of really speaking out and showing support. So what would you recommend for this individual to do with their school in regards to reaching out to families and staff about what's going on?
Yeah, I felt compelled to send out a message because I was being told by educators of color who I respect that would feel supportive to them. The first message I sent out was not at all well worded, and that was pointed out to me, and it was a learning and growth experience to me, and it was fully supportive, but it said that while we're not speaking directly of the violence that's going on with children, we will, and it talked about the things that we will do. From our parents, the only thing I got back was positive, but from an educator I care about, she very kindly set me straight and said, you really have to talk about this. How can your families who are Black and brown and suffering and scared hear you saying you're not going to talk about it? So I immediately sent out an emendation and said, I never meant to say that we were sweeping this under the rug. We will talk in age appropriate ways. If any of you tell me that your kids are talking about it and want to talk, we will. And in fact, kids did raise it. So it was a learning experience for me that I owned really quickly and put out the information that we will do whatever our families feel is going to be supportive to do. We have had conversations and we are looking at a much deeper grounding in supporting the diverse families in our center and building up feelings of tolerance with kids. Daria and I both communicate with our families really often. Sometimes too often, multiple messages a day. So they hear from us all the time. They know us. They knew where we were coming from when I sent out the message. But what I would say is just be honest and genuine and authentic, and say, if I'm not doing it the way you think is right, please tell me. And we're evolving and learning. And all of this is going to be how you word, what you word is going to be very shaped by the community that you're in. But I think, it was definitely brought to my attention that it would be important to speak. And so we did speak and have spoken and continue to speak.
Two other questions going back to COVID.
I don't know if Scott's on. Scott, you've spoken. Maybe you want to jump in on that one as well, because you have a broad view of centers.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on this too. So we felt that it was paramount that we did say something. And I think our approach was, let's be open and authentic about this and share about our fear and some of the things that we're not sure about, but we're being thoughtful about. Now, we're part of a larger consortium in Buffalo, and it's interesting, like a lot of some of the real enigmatic things that have happened with police and the older man falling, to see how hot it's got in Buffalo, and see that our city officials have not said a whole lot, and then seeing people in the community not feel the safety that they would. I just like to say that I think it's paramount that we all communicate, and we have a stewardship and a responsibility to our employees, whether or not they are people of color, whether or not they're systemically disadvantaged, but I think saying something and having that conversation. And Shira, like you said, I think you put out your first statement and maybe it wasn't beautifully wordsmithed, or maybe it just didn't hit, but the willingness to listen, I think, is what people are really wanting now, today. Anybody active in this conversation just wants there to be an openness and an open and friendly, thoughtful ear on the other side of the conversation. So again, and we're learning every day. We're learning every day.
Thank you.
Okay, so I picked one last question since we only have a few minutes left about one of the people asked if you're working with infants and one of the infants comes down with the virus, how you would do it if you had to shut down your program. I think we would go to the Department of Health, right, Sherry? You have to let them know. And
yeah, so the way that we've been told it works in New York is, and this is probably similar in most places, although there'll be some local differences. We have, as I described, these pods. So infant teachers only interact with infants, toddler teachers only interact with toddlers, and preschool teachers only interact with preschoolers. So if, let's say, an infant teacher contracted COVID, we would immediately report to parents, report to the Office of Children and Family Services, and report to the Department of Health. What we're told would then happen is that anybody who had been in contact with that teacher, children and adults, within 6 feet for more than 30 minutes would need to self-isolate for 2 weeks. So that's what we're anticipating would happen. I'm trying to set expectations and saying when that happens, not if that happens, and if we're spared, all the better. So that we're prepared for it, and that what I don't want is anybody to feel any shame or guilt for getting sick, because it happens, and we'll manage and we'll navigate through. So we're really careful with our health protocol, but that's what we would understand would happen. Now, the Department of Health comes in, the contract contact tracers come in and they might say everybody has to shut down or more people. So at that point, it's whatever the Department of Health tells you.
The question was how many children are in each pod. So under our current enrollment, it's different in each pod, but you are not allowed to exceed more than 10 children in a classroom, regardless of age. So it has to be less than 10, which in an infant classroom, it would be no more than 8 if you're in with 2 teachers and 4 infants per caretaker, excuse me. But you're not allowed to have more than 10 children per classroom. So we currently don't even have that. We don't have that warranted right now. So it's just no more than 10. And right now each pod is differently depending on how old the children are.
All right, Dara, you want to do one more question or are we good?
Let me see. So they want a definition of what a pod is. They want you to clarify what the pod is.
It's a division. So infants, so infant classrooms are the infant pod. So we used to have teachers who were floaters go between classrooms. That doesn't exist anymore. So there's our infant program, there's our toddler program, there's a preschool program, and the 3 do not mix at all.
And obviously every state is different. People are messaging in the chat that they're from Georgia and they can have 25 children. So it really depends on your local laws. The information we're giving to you is obviously from a New York perspective. So obviously you have to follow your local guidelines, but for us it's 10. I think that's pretty much all of the questions.
All right. Well, thank you all. Anybody who wants to reach out to me, it's shira@discoveryvillagecenter.com and be part of some brainstorming on very grassroots, very democratic, very egalitarian ways of brainstorming and connecting together.
Shira, thank you so much. The content was amazing. Really appreciate you putting the time into this and your advocacy and commitment to other early educators. Again, this is 3 hours of total content, more than 3 hours between your 2 sessions. Really appreciate it. Everybody out there, please stay safe. Next week, I will be leading the webinar. We'll be talking about childcare management systems and my thought of the tools that you need. And I look forward to seeing you all there. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and please reach out to us if you need us. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.